Over the weekend, a cyber attack caused the Colonial Pipeline on the East Coast to shut down. Just shut down all 5,500 miles of a fuel system. They were hit with ransomware. The threat of cybersecurity attacks, it's very real. But Pat, I work out of my basement. I'm a tiny little business. I'm not going to get hit, right? Right? Actually, wrong. On today's Small Business Rally Point, we have two experts here to share the threat, what you can do if it happens, and how you can protect yourself from cyber attack. Welcome to Small Business Rally Point, the weekly meeting of small business owners everywhere. I'm your host, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. Big thanks to our sponsors, as always, Bank 59, Quick Trip, Serendipity Labs, and of course, we are backed by the Idea Collective collaboration community for small business owners. Shout out to all of our members on Facebook and inside the premium group. Thanks for coming today. Now, the show is interactive, and if you have questions, which I imagine will have a lot of questions, of course, comments and sarcastic remarks, they're always welcome in the chat, and we will work some of them into the show, Michael Rampolla, not all of them. After our interview, we'll hang out for the Quick Trip after party networking, where we can meet and greet and then continue to grill our guests today for more cybersecurity tips. So today's experts to talk cybersecurity are Roger Heindl from Tech Lab and Gjeret Stein from Make Clicks Count and Ultra Scary LLC. Two of the guys that I would turn to if something ever happened to me. So let's welcome them one by one. Gjeret, it's great to see you, my friend. How are you today?
I am freaking awesome as long as I can hit the unmute button. How's yourself?
We're good. We're good. We're glad that you're here. And whenever I get a chance to talk to you about cybersecurity, I always leave learning more, but terrified at the same time. So I'm sure that, are you going to be terrifying today? Or are you going to help us solve problems today, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. But
Terrific.
People should be wary, not afraid.
Okay. Oh, wary, but not afraid. I can work with that. And Roger Heindl, it's great to see you as well. How are you today, Roger?
There we go. I can't work the mute button, apparently. I'm feeling great, and it's happy Monday to you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pat.
Absolutely. Well, it's great that you're here. Now, both of you help folks with IT, but maybe do it in a little bit different way. Can you tell us about Tech Lab and what Tech Lab does?
Sure. We're a computer support company, and we work to make we work with a variety of technologies to make the unknown known and solve the unsolved. And we do that by making technologies that weren't initially designed to talk together actually communicate, all the various tech systems that an office might use, and we secure, monitor, and maintain the whole system.
Cool. Cool. That's great. And thank you for sharing that. And Gjeret, you've got a bunch of cool projects going on. Tell us about your IT empire and how you help customers.
Sure. I've been in IT since 1994. I was building machines for the Chicago Stock Exchange. And now we are running just a couple companies. We got the Gurus, which is the IT consulting. We got Ultra Scary, which is IT security. We got a mess of software as a service. But really what we're here for is to help small businesses survive.
Now, this is cool. And before we get started, I want to thank you both, because this is truly the spirit of the Idea Collective. We have two people that both help small businesses with their IT, and you're both coming on the same show to talk about it. So that doesn't happen everywhere, but it happens here in the Idea Collective. And I just want to say thanks to you both for doing it. So with that said, let's start with you, Gjeret. The issue of cybersecurity seems to be something that small business owners don't think about until it's too late. Why is that?
Because people have this ingrained idea that it will never happen to me, or it's such a big, scary idea that that they're going to get hacked, and they don't really know what that means. Some hacking can be as mundane as changing the icons on your desktop, and other ones completely lock you out of your system, and your business is basically shut down. And there is no easy explanation for what it does, or the black magic that is used to pretty much hack you.
So it's unknown. We don't know how bad it is. So Roger, when you broach the topic with your small business clients about, the concept of cybersecurity, do they react that same way, that I don't really need to worry about that? Or how do you get them to care about it?
Many of the customers that come to us are they read about the security issues with other companies in the news or see it on TV, and they are interested in taking a proactive approach to their cybersecurity as opposed to reactive, um, where they're afraid that a situation might actually happen to them, and they ask us to come and review their infrastructure and make sure everything is as good as it can be. And we'll sit down with them, we'll evaluate their comfort level in terms of risk, and we'll design a solution that hopefully for them won't break the bank either.
So that's a good client, someone that wants to lean into it and have you check them out. But Garrett, let's go back to you. People aren't assessing the risk properly, and maybe people are thinking they're too small to be attacked. Is that true? Is there safety in being small?
Not anymore. Most of the people who are running these attacks against these small businesses are from overseas. So the average yearly salary for a help desk worker in Mumbai in India is, let's see, where was that? That was 108,000 rupees a year, which converts to $2,500 a year. So if these hackers can attack a company and get $700-800, that's half of their year's salary.
Mm-hmm. So who's doing this? Do you see, Roger? I mean, is it all overseas attacks, or is that mostly where it's coming from?
It comes from everywhere. A lot of scammers and people that are interested in getting into systems are using uh, automated systems to scan through every internet connection that exists and see if it can find flaws and break into those systems and find a way to use it to their advantage. So really, it's not necessarily, it's not all the time. There are people behind the attacks, but a lot of times it's automated infrastructure that's doing the checking and trying to figure out how to break into different systems. And then they compile a giant list, and then those scammers then use that information to their advantage.
So they start with maybe some of these robots or programs that are out there scanning things. What are some other ways that small business owners are being attacked right now?
Well, a common one is phone scams. There's a topic called social engineering in the IT industry where a scammer just uses verbal manipulation to convince somebody to do something. And right now, one of the common scams going around is a gift card scam. They're looking for people that have increased anxiety because of COVID. People tend to do things that they wouldn't normally do if they're anxious. So they use scare tactics to basically freak you out and get you into this mode of, yes, I need to do what this person says and I need to do it immediately. And that's usually where they fall victim.
Yeah, and I've heard you said social engineering, which leads to the user. Garrett, I've heard it say before that we are our own biggest security risk. Is that true?
Absolutely. 95% of the security issues that we run into is not a flaw in the system. It's a flaw between the keyboard and the chair. It is a people, especially Americans, when they hear somebody asking for help, they try to help. So when the National Password Hotline calls you up and goes and asks you to, and you're laughing, Jennifer. This has happened to one of my clients.
Come on.
Where they ask a person in accounting who's really not that savvy in their in the technology that they want to double check to make sure the password is strong. People just try to help, and they go, "Yes, fluffy bunny slippers 123. Is that a good password?" And yep, and yeah. Easiest thing to do is ask.
Wow. So we talked about scanning. We talked about tricking people through social engineering. Are there other major food groups, Garrett, of types of attacks that come out after people?
There's a lot of different attacks that come out, and then usually the attacks are tiered. So we'll start with a very common attack that you'll see is basically the Nigerian scam, where they send you hi, we're a Nigerian prince. They have bad misspellings all over the place, and the real attack vector for that is not necessarily for you to go to Western Union and wire that money over. If you do, bonus, that's payday for them. But they are looking for the low-hanging fruit. They're looking for the people who fall for the easy scams, and they take those names and put them onto a different list and then sell that list to other attackers.
All right, so Roger, you would think, because this is technology, right? Why can't we just stop this? Is it because of the human factor, or is it just so complex, or the scammers are better than we are? I mean, why can't we just stop these things in their tracks?
Well, money is a huge incentive for these scammers to work ahead. And a lot of times you're in a situation where an enormous organization, if a scammer devises a new idea to do something, it takes a while for an organization to communicate those new things down the chain of command. For instance, there's a scam that I was reading about recently, within the last 6 months, where a scammer will call into a call center and they'll call another person in the same call center. They'll mute their own phone, get the two people talking to each other, and they're trying to figure out how they got connected. And I need to talk to so-and-so's manager, and you need to talk to so-and-so, your manager. And the scammer is listening in to the actual structure of the organization. So all of a sudden, if they learn that information, they can then use that to their advantage to pretend to be another company. And it's one of those things where companies have difficulty educating people on this.
Now, if you're watching the replay of this show and you aren't in the Small Business Rally Point room, you're missing something, because the chat that's going on in the Zoom while we're having this conversation is awesome. People sharing stories and feedback, and some asking questions that we'll work into the conversation here in a bit. But if you're watching the show afterwards, make sure that you make the next time we do one of these shows, because being in the room and for the Quick Trip After Party to be able to ask questions of these experts is really a big value. So we'd love to have you join us on one of the upcoming shows. So, Gjeret, let me go back to you real quick, because I want to get to what we can do about it. Yes, it's big and scary, but we want to help people today. But I just want to make sure that people understand the scope and the scale of what can happen if you get gotten. So, which is proper English in security parlance, right? To say get gotten, isn't that proper? So can you give us an example of a small business that maybe you've heard of or you've worked with that was attacked and bad things happened, so we know how bad it can be?
Sure, I'll give you a real world example. One of my clients is another IT service provider who supports small governmental entities in southeastern Wisconsin. Their client, we got brought in to do an audit on a incident. Their client was in the lawsuit, and they lost the lawsuit. They got an email from the other lawyer saying, hey, here's where you send the money to. Here's the banking information. 10 minutes after that, they got another email from the lawyer saying, oops, we gave you the wrong information. Here is the correct banking information. And it was a $3 or $4 million lawsuit. The bank allowed $10,000 to go through and then cut it off. The big problem here is that my client's client did not follow the written procedure. They are never allowed to get banking information over the email. They were required to always get that banking information verbally or in a certified letter. Because they did not follow their policies, they got scammed. And it was a $10,000 scam, but it could have been a $5 million scam.
And this wasn't exactly like IBM or Coca-Cola, like this was just a regular old kind of small business, right? This wasn't some megalopolis of companies that you were working with.
This is no. This is a fairly small municipality.
Yeah. Roger, do you have an example maybe of someone that got gotten? Because I'm going to keep on saying that because it makes me happy. And someone that got gotten and either got out of it or had bad effects.
Yeah. I had a real estate company that had the same thing happen. They followed some instructions through an email without verifying the source. Uh, Same type of situation, but it was like a $250,000 home. But I want to bring up that I also had a situation a few years ago where a law firm got broken into the traditional way, where they actually figured out uh, an account on the server, got into the server, copied a whole bunch of legal documents related to a case, and then proceeded to delete all the data on this law firm server. Now, fortunately for us, we had them set up properly in advance with some offsite backups, and it was running on a recurring schedule, and we could restore the system quickly. But the attackers were very targeted at the information that was deleted because they didn't want it to be used in a legal case.
Wow. All right. So I wanted to purposely structure this interview because I wanted the start of the interview to kind of underscore it's bad, right? And you can't like ignore this or bad things could happen. But I do want to turn the interview purposely now to talk about what we can do about it. So, Gjeret, I'm going to throw this to you first. Where do we start? What do you recommend? Because I'm sure we'll ask a bunch of questions in this portion of the interview, but I'm curious. Okay, you're talking to us. We are your client. Where do we start? Because it seems overwhelming.
Great. First, talk to an IT specialist. Talk to an IT security specialist before it happens. Everybody's going to get breached into at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
If it is so much easier to lay the groundwork, to get a plan in place, to understand what could happen, than clean up a mess that has happened. So number one, have a plan, talk to your people, do it before you're breached.
Yeah.
Once you're breached, chances of you going out of business just skyrocket.
Yeah, you've shared that stat before. Can you talk about that? When someone gets broken into or bad things happen, there's like a huge percentage of people that not only lose money, they lose everything.
Yeah. If think about your business, what would happen if somebody got into your email account and you're storing your banking information in your email account, and suddenly your bank account for your business is wiped out, wire transferred overseas? Can you survive?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Roger, is there a starting point that you recommend? Because Gjeret makes a great point. Getting a security audit and working with an IT firm, that's a great place to start. What else can we do to get started on the path of security hygiene? Or I'm sure there's some phrase like that. What would you recommend?
Yeah, so one of my favorite things to tell all of our customers is the best quote from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. What's the number one thing you do? Don't panic. Because too many people panic right away, and that's when they make mistakes. So, and then after that, definitely call a security professional. Oftentimes we recommend, especially if it's financial related, Michael Rampola is holding up his phone that says, "Don't panic" on it. When you speak with your financial institution, especially if it's involving money, they have policies and procedures in place to evaluate a situation, figure out how bad it is, and work with you to stop anything from getting worse.
Mhm.
So the first thing we always tell people is contact your bank, contact your credit card company, reach out to them, go through their procedures. Then the next step that we handle is securing your own computer, making sure that the hackers didn't put any viruses or malware on the computer that could be monitoring you into the future. So we're looking at securing your accounts first, and then securing the systems and making sure your stuff didn't get out. And then we actually start the arduous process of resetting all accounts that may be using the same password, which is a terrible recommendation. You want different passwords on all accounts. And in some cases, depending on the severity, our company actually has to produce a report to the insurance company if their insurance is going to cover it or whatever. So there's a process that we go through to make everybody safe and secure after they've been compromised. But of course, we prefer to do that ahead of time and avoid the situation in the first place. And that involves keeping systems up to date, checking them on a regular basis, changing passwords at least every 6 months, stuff like that.
All right, so this makes sense. And hearing you two, especially you two, tell us, guys, you need to talk to people like us before it gets bad. You're right. However, we do have questions about what we can do on our own before we call you two. So hopefully you can field them because they're starting to fill up the chat box. And the thing that everybody's asking about, and Gjeret, I'll come back to you for this, password managers. Good idea. Should we have one? Tell us about password managers, and do you recommend one?
I am a big fan of open source. If you don't have to spend money, don't spend money. KeyPass is an awesome, awesome tool. The great part about KeyPass is only you have the key to get into your password database. The crappy part about KeyPass is only you have the key to get into the password database. Other tools like Dashline or LastPass, they have tools out there where they can go in and change your user account information to get into your database or your passwords.
Okay. Question that was from Heather, and we also got a question about that from Sarah. So thank you both for asking those questions. Another question is about two-factor authorization. Important. Can you talk about that a little bit, Roger? Why two-factor authorization is important and what it is and why it's important, I think is the right way to ask the question.
Yeah. Two-factor authentication is one type of layered security. And we talk about layers like an onion in the IT industry. You want gateways lining up to keep people out. So if they break into the first level, they still have to break through the second level to, get access to your data. And two-factor authentication does just that. If you use your username and ID, username and password to log into a system, then that's the first level of authentication. Then, depending on the site you're using, there might be a reCAPTCHA image where you have to click all the pictures of stairs. That's a secondary level of authentication to prove that you're probably a human. And then another level that happens is they'll send you a passcode to your registered cell phone number to get into the system. So that is, I'm talking about potentially a third level of authentication. But that's basically how multi-level authentication works, is they're just putting up additional barriers to try and make sure that you are the person that should be using that account.
So we want to ask about antivirus. We want to ask backing up questions too, but I want to stay on passwords for a second. Gjeret, can you talk about how quickly or frequently we should be changing our passwords and what makes a good password? And maybe you two had different theories on this. I'd love to hear them both. So Gjeret, how about you? Should we be changing passwords on a regular basis? And if so, what makes a good password?
I'm not a fan of changing passwords.
Okay.
I'm a fan of having every site having a completely different password. And if you need to type in that password quite a bit, so if you're going from computer to computer and you don't have your password manager, which you want to create a really long, obscure, randomly generated character password, if you don't have that tool and you need to remember that password, think of words. Think of 2 to 3 words or the line of your favorite song and plop that in as your password. A human mind can remember a phrase. A human mind can remember words or images. A human mind is not very good at remembering capital Q, lowercase a, exclamation point, ZQF. So that's my go-to.
I've also heard people say, Roger, that passwords are good if they're made up words or words that are misspelled. Do you believe in that kind of stuff, or what do you recommend for passwords?
Yes, absolutely. Washington University, I believe, I think that's the university, to study on passwords and the strength of passwords. And it also somewhat ties into AT&T and Bell Labs. So my theory on passwords is this. When Bell Labs was developing the telephone system, the reason we have 7 numbers in our telephone numbers is because 7 is a very easy number of things for people to remember. So if you want to remember your friend's phone number, you just dial it a couple times and it just sticks in your head because it's 7 digits. There's something magical about our brain that likes 7 as a lucky number if you go to Vegas or something.
Aha.
So what I tell people, and I love the passphrase thing, and what I do is I tell people do 3 or 4 words, and then if you're doing 4 words, do 3 misspellings in those words, random places. Don't make your S's a $sign, that's too obvious. Make your S into the upper caret or something. But the mind is really good at remembering 7 things.
Okay.
So if you remember 4 words and 3 changes to that password, you're more likely to remember it. And it is incredibly hard, based on this university study, for the computer systems to break in, because the longer those words are, the more iterations of possibilities it is to break that password.
Okay, so we have so many questions that are queued up, but I still want to talk about 2 other really important parts of antivirus software and backing up. So for the folks that are in the room, and thank you for all the great questions, and I do want to get to them, just hang on for one more minute because I think it's pretty important that we talk about antivirus software and backing up. So Gjeret, are we running antivirus? What do you recommend for your clients?
Again, I don't like spending money. Windows Defender frickin' rocks. If you have Windows 10, turn that on. Get rid of the McAfee, get rid of the Norton, get rid of the AVG, run Windows Defender. Most of the attacks you find nowadays anyways are not are not viruses coming through your email. They're phishing attacks looking for your username and password.
Got it. Okay. And I like not spending money too, because money is good. We like money. What do you think, Roger? Are you recommending Windows Defender? Do you have other programs that you like to propose? Like, what do you like to do with your clients?
Absolutely. If you're on a budget, Windows Defender is a great tool. It's built into Windows 10. It's usually even on by default. However, if you have to have an antivirus solution because it's corporate policy or whatever, we actually recommend a combination of 2 different products. In our experience in terms of system load, WebRoot is a great paid antivirus to put on a computer. But the thing about antivirus versus malware is the antivirus companies treat viruses and malware differently. So an antivirus product will typically remove viruses that are damaging to a computer, and it won't necessarily always be that good at removing malware. And a good malware product, which I've been using for over a decade, is Malwarebytes. There's a free version and a paid version. The paid ones always scan continuously 24/7. The free ones, especially in terms of Malwarebytes, is only going to scan when you run the scan. So, but having malware is basically, it's a scammy thing that spies on you and tries to collect information in order to get you to do different things, whereas viruses are designed to spread and do damage to systems.
Yeah.
So the different companies treat them differently. So if you have to have a product, and you want to be thorough about your security, the paid products are also generally more updated sooner than the free ones. So there is a value to having a paid antivirus and a paid malware product on your computer.
Okay, Gjeret, question came into the chat about Apple. Are we running, there's no Windows Defender in Apple. So what's the story with your Mac OS?
I don't run an antivirus on my Mac. I make sure that my account is not running as an admin. Nobody should be running any account as an admin. Nobody should have their email running as an admin. You should always have a separate username and password for all of your admin duties.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk real quick about backing up because it's an essential practice that some people do and some people don't. And I would imagine if you have, again, good backup hygiene, if something bad happens to you, you're in a better position, question mark. So, Roger, what do you tell people to do when they're backing up? I mean, is there a certain recommendation that you have?
I tell them it's best to use different formats and different locations. I actually stored all of my college work on a server that I built at one point, and I did not have proper backups. I lost my entire college portfolio
Oh,
because I didn't have proper backups. So what makes a good backup then is at least two places and at least two different types of backups. For instance, if you have your data on a hard drive in one place, a USB stick at minimum is the next best place to put it on because it's a different technology is used in a USB stick versus a hard drive. And then if you can do a third option and get it off site, stick it in a safe of some sort. If you can get it onto removable media and put it there and get it on a regular cycle, getting it disconnected is the next best place to store backups.
so get it disconnected, different formats. And Garrett, I think I've heard you talk on this topic before. Did you say it was 3, 2, 1? Is that how you talked about backups?
My general gut reaction on backups is you need one more than you have.
There's a
Oh, thank
cartoon
you.
on my wall that says, that's to back up my data, and that's to back up that device, and that's to back up the device that's backing up that device, and that's to back up the next device, backing up the device that ...
Yeah. That's very witty, Garrett. So that's the thing, right? So like you can never have enough is essentially as many as you can tolerate taking care of. Is that your strategy?
As much as you can. We never delete anything. When we do backups, we usually at least have 3. We'll do the Windows, built-in Windows backup. We'll do a crash plan, and we'll do a custom job to a USB disk that gets disconnected as needed.
All right. So, guys, this is such great stuff. And we have so many questions that are queued. Let's pretend that we're on a game show. All right. So, it's time for the IT lightning round. So, I'm just going to come to you guys with a question and just give me your gut reaction to the questions as they come in. And if you have something you want to add, just raise your hand and we'll have you both talk. But we'll just go one by one because seriously, the questions are starting to stack. And I want to make sure that they get on the tape so everyone can get a chance to see this if they're watching it after the fact. So, the first question came in from Susie. So, Roger, why don't you field this one? Can buying a domain without a private setting make me vulnerable to an attack?
Yes, because it puts your contact information publicly online when you purchase a website name.
Okay, well, that was easy. So it's worth the extra money to make it private? Or let's follow up on that. Where do you buy your domains from? Because on GoDaddy, it's extra to make it private.
In our case, depending on how frugal the customer is, we can register it under our company instead of the customer. So that's one way of masking it, but that's legally binding them to us as the owner. So we don't generally recommend that. The next best thing is, yes, just go with the privacy and pay for it.
Pay the extra money for the privacy. Okay, got it. Roger, or Garrett, rather, there's a question from Greg that I'm going to read the whole thing because I'm having a hard time discerning the question. So maybe you saw this in the chat. Greg is just starting a new business and learning his way through the process. One thing on his mind is using something like PayPal on a website. And do I need to worry about the chance of being attacked through the website because PayPal is on it? Does that make sense?
Sure, you're always going to be attacked. Always, 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 always. If you have something out there, somebody's poking at it. Somebody's seeing what can we do? What happens if you're looking for a 1 through 0 and I put in a Q? Will that break the code? Somebody is always looking at a way to get around what you have. If you have a website, you have to make sure that security is up to snuff. And you have to make sure that security is up to snuff tomorrow too, because what's true today is not necessarily true tomorrow.
Okay.
So yes, always be worrisome.
Okay. That was the
and make sure that your PayPal account, especially if it's attached to a website is attached to a separate bank account that doesn't have much money in it.
Okay, that's good stuff there, and ultra terrifying or ultra scary, if you will. Roger, do you have something you want to add on that?
I want to add that looking at the logs of our firewalls, the average firewall gets attacked anywhere from 8,000 to 15,000 times a day.
Oh, come on now. Wait a second. Now, okay, hold on. You're saying that smallbusinessowner.com that's listening to this show is getting hit that many times a day?
Yes.
Come on. Because
No
they're
joke.
robots? That can't be enough people. It's got to be robots, right?
It is mostly robots, yes. But the average router is being checked for flaws 8 to 15,000 times a day if you actually look at the logs.
Well, I guess my password of Fluffy Bunny 420 is doing a lot better than I thought. It must be 8,000 attacks a day. That's pretty impressive. All right, so now I'm starting to get really scared. Okay, so let's go to another question that'll probably frighten us. Roger, I'll stay with you. Sarah was asking about, can you talk about the importance for businesses and guest Wi-Fi? What are the do's and don'ts as far as having your Wi-Fi or guest Wi-Fi when people are in your office?
Yeah, a properly set up guest Wi-Fi is going to totally isolate your guests from your network. So it's important to do some testing and make sure that if I connect to my guest Wi-Fi, that the server in my office is not accessible, or any of the other computers. It should not be. The second thing is typically a guest Wi-Fi network will isolate the guests from each other so that you're reducing the chance of infection spreading from one guest to the other. Many companies will also put a web page login on their guest network. A lot of times it'll ask you to put your email address in. It's one way that they can add you to their marketing list. So you got to watch for that. And I don't know, Jarrett, you got any other suggestions about guest Wi-Fi?
Yeah, don't use one. Just
don't offer it.
Don't offer it. Make your clients come in and tether off their phone. Don't have them. Don't give them the attack vector to get into your network.
So let's follow up on that. Shelley wants to know about tethering hotspot. Can you tether a hotspot in public, or is that just opening yourself up?
Sure, why not? That's just going over the cellular network. It's just direct access to the internet.
Okay. Got it. We've got so many questions here that we want to get into, and I think some of these are going to have to shift off into the quick trip after party because there's just so much stuff here and so many great questions. The information you're helping us with is fantastic. We talked about backups. We talked about passwords. We talked about password managers. You mentioned if something goes wrong, don't panic, but let's go even further than that. Let's pretend, Garrett, let's say I'm your client and something goes wrong. What do you do when I call and say, uh-oh, Garrett, something bad happened? I mean, what is that like when something bad happens, and how do you go about attacking it?
Sure. Well, really depends on what it
is. Yeah.
A lot of times, the first or second call, we tell our client to calm down and talk to one of two people first. First person being the insurance company, second person being the police. First, the insurance company, if you have a policy that covers cyber, you have to follow that policy to a T. If you bring in an IT company and they start trying to recover stuff, the insurance company can say, you touched it, screw you, we're not dealing with it. And then you're completely out of luck. And the police is to get a official paper trail going.
Okay. That's good. And Garrett, or Roger rather, how about you? So if we're a client of yours and something bad happens, how do you react to that? Because that stuff Garrett just shared is obviously wonderful practice. Insurance is something we haven't even really talked about yet. Getting a paper trail started from the police. What else is going off in your head when a client calls and says, I can't get into my system?
The first thing we do is assess the severity of the situation. Because different clients have different acceptable levels of risk that they can tolerate, and it is based on their policies. And depending on how severe the situation is, yes, we would go to the insurance company and the police, or in the case of home-based business, will, I had a client that clicked on something and all of a sudden she had all this stuff on her computer and she was freaking out. And one of the things that we just had to do right away was talk her down. It's going to be okay. We'll work through this. There's the human factor in effect also that we have to, human emotional factor. And it's bigger than you realize, and it's more important because once you bring people off that high, they're more likely to think straight. So then we contact the insurance company, contact the police if necessary, and we look at establishing a procedure for restoring the system. What did we lose? If it's a HIPAA issue, what's our timeline? Often it's just a couple of days, if that, where we have to report it to the people involved. And we have to make sure we're following these certain timelines. Otherwise, really bad things can happen. And so we put a plan together and then we execute the plan. And if they do have policies, we have to look at those policies and make sure we're following them. And we just get all the information put together. We say, this is what we're going to do. This is our plan of action. These are the people that have to be involved and contacted. And this is the process. This is approximately how long it's going to take to restore everything. We'll put that whole report together and get working on it.
So, okay, and that's great. And that's kind of getting to the next question, because I'm going to come back to you for final thoughts. And Gjeret has a few websites that he wants to share that he gave to us, so he can explain that as well. But we're almost out of time. But I want to circle back to a question, Gjeret, that came up earlier. You both said, get with someone in IT that can help assess your risk and get you set up before bad things happen. So first of all, Gjeret, are you taking on new clients? And what does that kind of look like as far as a relationship goes? And I'm not asking you guys to share your prices or anything, but are you looking for bigger companies, smaller companies? Who do you work with? I just want to make sure you guys have both given us such great information today. If someone's here saying, man, I really could use your help, can you paint that picture of how a relationship starts and how you would go about helping that person? And then Roger, I'll come and get the same thing from you, just to make sure everybody knows how you could help us if we're freaked out right now, which many of us are.
Sure. Yes. Am I taking on new clients? I never turn away free money. What type of client I'm looking for? I am at a spot in my career where I don't need more clients. I'm more than happy to get more clients, and the clients I want are ones that will value our input. I am not looking for a quick buck. Most of my clients have been with me for over 15 years. And we don't even deal with quotes anymore. They just say, I need this done, and we get it done. So when we're looking for clients, we're looking for a relationship. We're not looking for a quick buck and then never talking to them again.
And clearly you're passionate about it and invested in it. And I'm sure that someone would enjoy that if they were working with you, no doubt. Roger, how about you? What's the ideal client for you, and what does that relationship look like so people know how they could work with Tech Lab?
Yeah, some of our customers include retail and e-commerce. If you have a storefront and you're looking at switching to selling online, there's a whole process to making that transition that we go through with our customers. We have a number of businesses in the healthcare industry, independent physician offices, dental, and wellness organizations. We work with the service industry a lot. Companies like salons, automotive, property management, and legal and financial, where for pretty much all of them, data breaches are a huge security and safety concern.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Now, Gjeret, you had shared a couple of links that I'm going to drop into the chat. Can you comment on what they are real quick? So, because you mentioned that they were important. One of them is the CISA.gov, haveibeenpwned.com, and NIST.gov. Can you talk about what these are and what they do?
Sure. The .gov are the basically the government response to different security issues. One of them gives you the list of known breaches and the severity of the breaches,
Mhm.
or flaws in different systems. And the Have I Been Owned is a great way to find out if any of your email addresses are located in some breach at some place. And spoiler, it has. Everybody that how many people here have paid their taxes?
Well, you know.
Okay, congratulations. Your information is now out there. Thank you, US government. So yeah, it's a great site to make sure you get yourself registered to, and they'll let you know when they see you in new and upcoming breach lists.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. I'll give you both the chance for last comments before we wrap up. Roger, anything else that we haven't hit that you want to hit?
Yeah, we've actually got a program for being proactive about your tech. It's called Tech Vigilance, and our members have we spread out the costs of managing their tech. So if they do have an incident happen, it's not going to spike in costs for them. And it allows us to go in as our schedule permits on a minimum routine basis sort of thing, where we can check everything out, make sure systems get upgraded, and everything is functioning optimal the way it should be. So
I love that.
that's one of our primary services that we offer to our customers, Tech Vigilance.
I love it. Garrett, anything else that you want to add before we wrap up here today?
Sure. Don't panic. Number one, don't panic. Number two, it is much more cost effective to be proactive than reactive. And number three, never trust. Always verify. If you get an email that you did not expect, give that client a call. Go, hey, did you really want to send me this PDF? And if they did, wonderful. You're touching that client, and you have a touch there. And if they didn't, great. You just made a touch to your client. It gives you a good opportunity to do a sales call.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I got to tell you, Garrett and Roger, this is terrific information. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to wrap up the show and then go to the quick trip after party, because I'm sure that the folks in the audience do have some additional questions. Some of them we didn't get to, and I'm sorry, guys. I tried to get in as many as I could while getting around all of this great information. But let's share a few quick announcements before we wrap up to the quick trip after party networking. So on Wednesday, we have a special event inside the Idea Collective that's new. Talmar Anderson, she is the leader of Boss Actions. She's created a new show inside the Idea Collective called Bosses Only. It's a 1-hour show for people with people. So if you manage people on your team, she's addressing topics that you need to learn about so you can manage your team better. And this week's theme, or this month's theme rather, is it time for the step up or step out conversation? We've all been in that spot with an underperforming employee. When is the time to light a fire under them? And Talmar is going to teach us that information on that event. It's inside the Idea Collective. And if you're in the group, in the premium group, we'd love to have you at that event. Also, we're starting to get some traction with the new Pat Miller Show. If you're not sure what we're doing basically an hour of live radio where I am growing, fixing, and celebrating small business. And this is a casting call. We are looking for small business owners that want to come on and kick around a challenge that they're facing, maybe an opportunity that they're trying to capture, or something great happened in their business, and they want to come on and celebrate and tell the story with everyone that's listening. Hit up patmillershow.com and grab your time for tomorrow's recording session. 1:00 is the date and time of the recording. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's been so great talking with folks so far, and it's my way to give back and help out small business owners in real time. Lastly, got to mention, if you're not an Idea Collective member, Bank 59 is still crushing it, offering a 1-year free membership to the Idea Collective. All you have to do is hit up bank59.com/Idea Collective, and you can learn about their 12-month free program with the group. So a big thank you to Roger and Garrett for coming on today. A big shout out, of course, to Jennifer Buchholz, the one behind the scenes, producing the call and trying to manage this giant chat, which is really on fire. She's the ultimate connector in my business BFF. And of course, thanks to Bank 59, Serendipity Labs, and our new partner, Quick Trip. We love them. Off to the Quick Trip after party for networking and connection. Look for the Idea Collective YouTube channel and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a future show. I'm Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.